Hi, and goodbye to this world in particular. This is not the start of a world, but rather the end of a world. This is a world I've been playing on for about 800 hours in the Craig Tech New Horizons mod pack. That's considerably one of the hardest mod packs for Minecraft. The purpose pretty much explicitly just to make things complicated and technical and very lengthy. The goal is to start all the way at Stone Age, advance through Steam, and then slowly get further and further technologically until you beat the game, basically. You make a Stargate, and that's kind of all there is to it. It's technically pointless, and it is just another world, but 800 hours is a lot of time, and a lot of effort has been put into this world, even if at the moment it doesn't really look like it. So I figured I would kind of just document this for myself and kind of go through all of the builds, all of the things that happen in this world, and just kind of muse my feelings on it, maybe talk about the origins of it. This is pretty much just the start of the world right here. Originally, we just dug a hole in the ground and kind of just lived in a cave, built a nice farm above it, eventually ended up with a few cows and pigs, sheep and whatnot all around. Since the get-go, we had a nice, beautiful little pillar here from the Thaumcraft mod that spawns horrible creatures outside of it, but, you know, when we chose the base, the people that chose didn't know what that was, and so here it is. Now it's kind of a structural integrity pillar right there. It's very fun, and it is useful, even if it is mostly painful and creates this annoying fog. Outside, we've got a beautiful little spruce tree farm here that used to just get saplings planted here and there all over the place and just chop it down in one beautiful swoop to fuel all our needs at the very start of the game. Over here is a nice little bee apiary farm that never really saw any use, but it's out here and it's a little irregular, so I'm gonna show it off. Got a nice little wall that never really got finished around the place, and a whole lot more trees of every variant of fruit and vegetable and what have you, whatever grows on trees. Oh, that's a classic danger of the Eldritch Pillar. But other than that, we'll just head on in here. Server's a little laggy. I would restart it, but to be honest, I'm probably just going to shut it down after this. This is the very entrance. It's pretty much where we made our first home. I did a lot of the building in this base. Originally, this is where we spent all our time. We had chests lining these walls here and had all of our storage. Used to have beds right over here. And pretty much just spent 99% of our time just crafting right in these crafting benches here. Have the original furnaces and everything. The design's pretty much the same, maybe some extra bits and bobs, some unfinished things here and there. This area right here, as I said, it used to be chests. This is kind of a quote-unquote recent addition, probably like 8 months ago, of ripping all this out and putting beds in here just because we didn't really have anywhere else for it. Have a beautiful kitchen here. Not the biggest fan of this. Someone else that played on the server requested this, and to be honest, kitchen is way outside of my design, uh, my building palette. So I didn't really know what to do here. I gave them kitchen tiles as per their request, and they did all the internal furnishing and all of that. So I think it looks pretty nice. Definitely outside my building comfort zone. We got a hallway over here that just kind of leads back to the outside crops. It's pretty nice looking. I didn't make any of this. This was all gazebo by our uh, resident housewife, I suppose I would call him. He did a lot of the cooking at the start of the game, and then later on tackled a lot of the magic mods, as well as all the farming and crops. Here he's got a little villager pen set up. For a while he was a vampire and needed their blood to sustain himself. I think over here there's even some sort of villager farm. It's very classic 1.7.10, just a bunch of doors. It looks like it's not really working anymore, but it used to spawn plenty of them. Very loud, but we've got sound mufflers in here. Other than that, I'll show a little excerpt over here. This is kind of proceeding throughout the base. Tinker's Smeltery, it just melts down ores and processes them at the very start of the pack. It's got some nice automation in the back here. It's kind of a mess. Yeah, I never really finished this, and the automation, it works, but again, a lot of unfinished things in this world that I kind of just never got around to. Um, if anything, it bothers me because this is really unused, and it was unused probably, I would say, 80 hours into the pack. It kind of took up prime real estate, but I think it looks aesthetic, and it's kind of cute having the very start here, right at the entrance, as a nice little reminder. Got a little bit of storage here for food. In this pack, eating unique foods gives you buffs, so we used to just try and eat as much as possible. Otherwise, we used to have steam pretty much in the exact same place as it is currently. These are all steam-powered machines, boilers and furnaces, compressors, hammers, all kinds of crazy stuff. This hallway got remade probably 4 or 5 times now by me. The machines used to be on level with this, and I think they might have been like 3 blocks over. At the very, very start of the pack, right when we got this hole and it was just stone and cobblestone, we had all our storage over here, and then someone thought the steam machines was too loud, so they threw them all the way like 100 blocks away. It was a little annoying for a while there, having to walk back and forth, but you know, such is life, and it worked out in the end. Down here is the Thaumcraft room, one of the most popular Magic mods. I'm a huge fan of it. The mod that is, not this room. As you can see, this room is very unfinished. Um, once upon a time, I think it could have been a very good room, but my planning with it was pretty short-sighted. I revamped this room 3 or 4 or 5 times. I had the intention to put the altar in here, as well as a little bit of basic crafting, but I originally intended to have a much more robust automation system. This mod, effectively, you melt down items, turn them into slurry, and then turn that slurry into more magical items. It's very creative, very unique. But what ended up happening is space kind of got constrained all around this room. The machine room, which I'll get into later, is right behind this wall. You can see it's looking pretty crazy in there. The kitchen's directly above this as well, which is my own fault, as well as a few other things are above and below it. But it ended up meaning that the roof couldn't really be done. I mean, this is literally the kitchen right here, and I think this is technically nothing, but um, making like a cohesive roof with this small of an area, in my mind, would be pretty big of a task, just because of how large it would need to be. But I'm sort of rambling. The moral of the story is that this is a very primitive system. It's pretty nicely automated. All of the jars you need for every different item you can craft is all just cleanly set up, and all you really need to do is just throw them in this giant crazy looking thing right here, and that's all you need. I've got nice little, basically batteries over here. They generate power for the mod once again. Come over on this line. It's a bit buggy. These lines are supposed to connect on these crystals all the way from here over to here, and then it's supposed to come here and here, but it looks like the crystals are missing. And then it comes to this little fancy crafting bench here. But either way, it did what it needed to do. I've just got some more, yeah, I've just got some more batteries over here. This is some sort of like elaborate farm where you drain all of these colored orbs to feed this main colored orbs. These guys are all over the place, by the way. They all have unique names and kind of like a hidden goofy thing that someone did. But I originally intended to have this be a lot more elaborate of a room. There's 3 or 4 magic mods, and I thought I was just going to put them all in here, but people kind of took them all, which is for the best. I'm happy about that. I wish I had done less magic mods. I wish I hadn't done any at all. But I just had a lot of pain of nostalgia, and it was definitely kind of selfish of me to take it. It made me happy, but in the same end, it pained me a bit. I wish, as a whole in this world, I was more generous to the other people that played here, because I definitely drove them away a bit during this. Regardless, this is a mob farm as well as a blood magic altar. Again, unfinished room. There's no detailing. It's all just a solid block. Really, really ugly. Once upon a time, I thought it was going to be awesome, but I just never really came back to it. The premise is you spawn the mobs in here just by like flicking a switch, and then they spawn pretty dang rapidly if it'll work. Again, kind of a laggy server. Doesn't look like they're going to. And then they just fall down here, and you have the option of either killing them automatically or manually in order to feed this altar here. I don't think there's really anything else going down here. I think there's some fancy storage system that automatically just plops out a ton of items, a ton of experience, just everything you could ever need, really, out of a mob farm. Love these. They are visually painful, but that's kind of it. That's all for the magic here. Let's move on. Got a little bit of a nether wart farm here. This is one of the like most quintessential magic juices you can get. You'll use it in basically every crafting for the mod. So automating it is very, very convenient. Just have two golems that sit here and toil away for all of time, basically. And till the sun explodes. This is just a charging station. You have wands that are used for crafting. You put them in this pedestal here, and then it kind of zoops all these little glowing balls right into here and charges it up for you. Normally you would have to go and hunt for these and do it manually, not the case. This is a nice little spa, pretty ugly looking. I made this pretty slapdash. I like the theme, I like the vibes, the smokes are cute, but the stone bricks are just very gaudy, very lazy. The magic mod gives you debuffs called warp, which gives you like basically insanity where you start hallucinating and horrible things happen to you. So this bath eases that. And so it was a nice little community bathing spot. This room's all right. I wish it had a little bit more detailing, a little more depth to it. Uh, these halls here are all right. A lot of this starting room here I like the design of, but pretty much immediately here it becomes a mess. All of the ceilings are just really plain. Nothing going on over here. This is really just empty void room that never got finished. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to the actual machining area here. And this is pretty big area. It got reworked, I think, 3 times. It's pretty much connected to the steam room in my mind. It is all one thing and all got reworked multiple times. Originally intended for there to be 2 of these things to have symmetry here. This is just a giant furnace. But this is basically everything we needed at the very start of the game. Everything after here, oh man, this is a whole different mess. It would take too many words to explain, so I'll try not to be too verbose. This is just ore processing. You take ores in here, and you put it in one of these chests, depending on what you want out of it. And it'll just go along this crazy line here from right to left and get processed and then end up in this chest here. Originally we had to take it out, but now there's a giant storage system that takes everything and handles everything itself. Let me see, is this even going to work? It looks like I really cheaped out on this, so it's very slow, but you just put it in and then it starts processing. If I had to do things again, I would rework this and update it and make it much, much faster. It's pretty cool though. It's very convenient how automated it is. But that's all that needs to be said there. Just some leftover mess that I've got. This used to be a lot of like fluids stored over here: water, lava, light fuel, nitrogen, oxygen, everything you could ever need was just on this wall, kind of lazily stored. For a while, I thought there was going to be storage on these walls. I thought I was going to put drawers that could hold items in them and kind of just access them from this main area here. But we ended up progressing past that pretty quickly. And so it just kind of got left over. This chest here is an ender chest, and it just grabs ores from a distant automatic miner that I have set up on probably the Mars or something. It's definitely no longer running at this point. It's been months and months since I've last been on this world. A lot of storage right here for different items. You can kind of just plop it out. That is kind of what I was thinking was going to happen over here, but I like this better. I wish aesthetically I had decorated all these drawers to look different and more fitting for the environment, but didn't really end up happening, and that's okay. It's just more storage over here, and this is the main storage. A lot of computer components right here for putting together like circuits. A little deprecated, but I like having the aesthetic here so to know what kind of stock we have going on. A billion different dusts over here, just every dust you could ever need, all taken care of. Some leftover chests of just random items that I didn't want to put in the storage system properly. A lot of like decorative stuff or just like unique stuff that was kind of pointless. A billion fireworks in there because you know you need fireworks. And of course the main storage system here is just the computer, which has every single item we have in the entire game, and then some. It has a decent amount of automatic crafting set up for it, so I could request some items get made. Like I could request 1,000 of these, and that's pretty cute. I think we might even be able to see like how it visually goes, maybe? It's been a while since I've used this, so apologies for the confusion. No, oh, that's fine. But regardless, it requests things, it creates things, it's very beautiful. Down here is pretty much the meat and bones of how that works. It draws from the storage up there and draws from fluid storage up there. So water, benzene, which is the power source for this whole thing, chlorine, just every single chemical you could ever want in life is all stored in these little vats here. And the computer system, storage system, keeps track of all of that. This is the heart of the computer. It basically is how all the cables connect to things and recognize things. It's hard to get into, but let me see if I have it on my person. Didn't mean to do that. Go. If I have it, that would be beautiful. Here we go. I think there's a network visualization. There we go. So yeah, this basically connects to the entire base. Every machine, every storage system, everything in the entire world is all basically routed through this. Invisible cables and real cables alike are all joining the entire base together into one central heart there, which is neat. It's not the best implementation, but it's all right. This is automatic crafting. These are basically a bunch of like fancy crafting tables so that you teach the computer how to craft things. You basically encode a pattern and tell it, here's how you make that, and make it. These are like CPU. They handle the actual like processing speed. If you're trying to craft 100 things, you need these to divvy up the work. This room, unfinished. It's looking all right. I think it's okay. I like what I was doing with the pillars here. The tops and bottoms are a little bit of a mess. And the ceiling as well is very clearly unfinished. The inner of this room, I like the floor a little bit. I definitely have too much of an addiction to great wood logs, that is for sure. That's just the power for the computer. It runs off magic, quite literally. This area, I like this area. I think it's cute. If it was completely filled out with a bunch of CPUs, I think it would look better. This area I'm honestly pretty happy with. One of the players in this world never really built anything. It's a little mean of me to say. He made a lot of machines, and that was a big help. But in terms of like actual building, he would kind of just put them in random places, uh, as well as just structure-wise. He would dig holes, and as quoted by himself, he would put them in the most inconvenient places intentionally. So this used to just be a hole that there are a bunch of machines here, and the hole was just put right next to the machines. And this computer he used for making the rocket, if I remember correctly, the spaceship that we needed. I don't remember if he really did anything else with it. He wanted to get into nuclear reactors, but we never really did. We also used it for automating crops a little bit, which this was convenient, but it was literally just a hole in a wall, and I kind of built this entire area right here around it. And I think it turned out pretty well. I mostly just like the floor. The roof, as you can see, is just completely unfinished. But regardless, a lot of just cables, a lot of unfinished area here. A few aesthetic areas where you can see it. It would look a lot better if the actual floor beneath it was ever finished in any way whatsoever. Um, this is just a giant furnace, super furnace. It cooks more things than normal. It requires certain heat temperature for certain things. And every single machine that we use basically throughout our playthrough is all in the walls here. I started to tear it out, but starting over here is low voltage. It's basically the very start of the pack, the most basic of machines and the majority of them. These chests take items, they put them into them, and these chests are the outputs effectively. It's the product that you get out of it. Over here is basically just those same machines but medium voltage, and then high voltage, extreme voltage, and insane voltage. This world as a whole technically never got to LUV. That was my goal, but I never really did. There was only really one quest that remained, and I just never really did it. It would have been a lot of work. Maybe would have been worth it, but such is life. Another fancy furnace here. It makes alloys effectively. This is where I distill water, the distilled water. It's useful for various chemical processes. This is a vacuum freezer, cools things down. A lot of just manual machines here for hands-on work rather than automation. I think pretty much the same thing over here. Here's a continuation of the ore process. Here's a little bit of micro management, but I'm kind of just rambling at this point. I started to fill this room in with a lot of multi-blocks. These are giant upgraded machines. These are effectively the end game. And as a result, ended up tearing a lot of this room apart. I intended to refurbish it, but obviously that's never going to happen at this point. Um, Over here is where all of the power happens. These are giant gas turbines that burn a chemical called benzene for fuel. They all run off of shadow metal and they connect to this giant battery bank here, which stores a couple million EU. Yeah, it looks like a billion just about. And whenever it gets too low, it turns them all on. When it gets too high, it turns them all off. It's pretty simple. This room as a whole, I think, is okay aesthetically. The finished parts, at least, look all right. Uh, I like the walls here. I don't like the ceiling. This part is okay. This is just needless color of grays and whites where I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have a roof on this thing forever, so I just wanted to finish it at some point. It was really close to turning out all right, I would say, but not truly. Just a bunch of empty space here that was placated for machines, and then this large box here is a clean room, and it exists to effectively just process materials, but in a safe environment. Currently, it's turned off just because of months passing, but it used to just run all the time. That's kind of it for this room. I probably glanced past a lot of interesting things, and I'll probably loop back to it a bit, but that's kind of it. Down here is a hallway that originally I intended to be all of our power processing. It at the very start, I went very far away to have a tree farm, which I should be able to access here pretty easily. Get processed into that chemical I mentioned earlier, benzene. These trees just get cut down automatically. They get burnt in these giant furnaces here and then processed into a big distillation tower to make that beautiful, beautiful benzene, which runs the entire base. It's pretty loud when it's running, pretty heavy on pollution, and I intentionally built it far away from the base to avoid constantly being bothered by that. I thought we were going to put like nuclear reactors and things down at the end here, but that never ended up happening. So at this point, I just sort of have random things stuck in here. There's some more like chemical processing. I don't really recall what this was even for. I think it was for some automation. I think it might have, based on that, I think this was for rocket fuel, maybe? I think it made rocket ship fuel, which also used to be made over here. There used to be a giant chemical plant here, but it looks like I intended to turn this into ore processing. I still have a little bit of leftover automation here. It used to hook up to the computer, but I've torn that all out and kind of moved it. This is some like oil processing. I used to make a bunch of plastics right here, but again, that all got torn out. And instead, I have some new rooms in here. This was, as this sign says, chemical processing. I kind of moved everything over here. I tried to do a lot of efficiency by sticking everything together in one area. This room I like a lot. I like this room a lot. It's one of my favorite rooms I made aesthetically, and it came pretty dang late. I think in the last like 100 hours or so that I actually played is when I made this one. Um, Again, unfinished. The floors never got finished. This was supposed to be a ton of machines lining this, just a lot of distillation towers. But only this over here got finished. I don't even know if anything's actually like hooked up to this. It looks like I was intending to make benzene over here instead. I think I was swapping over to this. Here's a bunch of large chemical reactors. These all do work. There used to be more of them, but I kind of tore a lot of them out when I realized they were only sitting there and not doing anything. These all automate the computer's like processing of various chemicals and a few items as well. The computer can recognize these and understand that these recipes exist. You can see like this says creates a plastic circuit board with 1 plastic circuit board, 6 copper foil, and 250 drops of iron 3 chloride. That's pretty much the same for all of these. It's just a lot of chemicals getting automated through these things, which I'm pretty happy with. Uh, if this room got finished, if it was completely filled out, all these black boxes were all along here, I think it would probably be one of my favorite rooms, but as is, it's just kind of a reminder of the end of the era. Um, this is pretty similar story. I think this was the very last thing I worked on. This is something called the plat line. It's where you make platinum. Even though you can smelt iron pretty easily in just a furnace, to make platinum, it requires just a billion machines, as you can see here. Every single one of these giant boxes is some other various chemical reaction, all with the express purpose to make platinum, rhodium, ruthenium, and I think a few others, palladium, osmium, iridium, just lots of good chemicals here. Very expensive late game materials. This was very almost completely self-sufficient. I got, I would say, 98% of the way there. All the machines I need are placed here. Everything's set up. I think it's just like 1 or 2 cables just don't have the correct input set. Like each of these cables here have a specific liquid or item or something of the sort configured for them. And I just didn't finish it because, again, I got burnt out. Everyone else had already quit. This world used to have 4 people on it, and that stopped a long while ago. Um, and yeah, it kind of just petered out for me, I suppose. But regardless, solid looking room. Not as good looking as the last one, I would say, but decent enough. I'm a big stickler for having depth in all of my rooms, 3 dimensionality. So I try to be unique about in that every way. I like a lot of this pattern going on here. I like the roof a decent amount. The walls at the ends here are pretty bad. It's just a lot of stone brick that's really flat. The reason I did that was because I figured it was all going to be covered up, but it still bothers me. This lead line box here was left over. We used to have a little bit of nuclear reactor stuff right here, but I moved it. This was like very start of the world, first like 300 hours, 200 hours, I would say. And that box has been there with those same items for pretty much forever. Um, but I ended up moving those nuclear items up here. There was a brief stint where everyone kind of came back to the world for a day or two, and I was like, well, we'll get going again, and I'll put all the nuclear reactor items down, and we'll have like a proper room for it. But you know, things happen, and they don't happen. So that's pretty much it for the main machining room. Originally, I planned to extend it out in like each of the prongs of the area, one over there, one over here, something over here. I was just gonna keep extending the same pattern, but uh, things changed. One of the players, the alleged housewife, ended up making a like very beautiful plant farm to get every sort of resource, and so they set up a full automation here. I wasn't grateful enough for it, I would say. It was a very large endeavor they embarked in, and they did solid amount of research. At the time, I was pretty frustrated because I didn't know anything about the mod, and while I am very knowledgeable, I don't know everything, and they kind of were asking me a bunch of questions that I just didn't know about, which pained me. I really am just a believer in research in everything, in trying to figure out how something works, experimenting, going into test world, reading documentation as best you can. And they weren't super about that, and it pained me a decent amount because it just felt like they weren't really caring, even though that was just my personal bias. They clearly did care a lot, as they did put like 400, 500 hours into this pack. But regardless, this area is largely unfinished. It's similar story to the Platinum line that I talked about earlier. All the machines are here, it's just not fully plugged in, and I didn't really help them reach the end goal. They were pretty confused by the end just with the cabling because they've never used the computer mod that's like handling all the cables, and I didn't really help them because they were trying to do something that I didn't super know. And I probably could have researched myself, but again, I just kind of wanted them to. Over here is the very start of automation. I use this for probably like 200, 300 hours. These are just a bunch of machines that are hooked up to computers. Not every machine in this workshop is hooked up to computers. It's kind of an expensive endeavor to do. And so this was the kind of proto era for it. These larger machines over here are now all properly hooked up to it and effectively work as a replacement, but this is like a room that never even was attempted to be cleaned up or made, so I never ended up cleaning it up either. A few of these still do have recipes on them the computer recognizes, and so they do work. I just don't use them at all. Right here is just a nice little glow flower farm we have. You just can turn these pretty much straight into glowstone, which is a pretty valuable resource. I think I have to maybe extract these or something of the sort. Yep, that checks out. For a while, we were really low on gold, and that was our solution, which worked pretty well. But that's kind of it for machine rooms. I can show a little bit of the underneath. It's not all that exciting, just a lot of more cabling, a lot more rambling. For a while, I got really obsessed with chunk borders. I regrettably watched a YouTuber who I think just doesn't know that much about much of anything. I kind of loathe them a bit. They're a pretty popular YouTuber, Threefold. But the one piece of advice I took from them is that chunk borders matter a lot and that you need to plan your world around chunks, because if you have a machine uh, like cross this green border here, like this big machine is one big 5x5 machine here, and if you were to make it, you know, like one part of it is here and one part of it is here, that would be a bad thing. The machine could break. Not the case at all. Not the case at all. That was just a falsehood on his part, and that was the one piece of advice I took, and I made all this down here. Completely a waste of time. Definitely a little jaded about this. This is the magic room over here. As you can see, it's getting the machine stuff. All these heads here just exist to like stabilize it and make the recipes work effectively, I guess is the best way to put it. But regardless, I spent way too much time mining this all out. It does make looking at all the cables a little bit more convenient. I've got basically a giant flow from the battery on this one purple cable here that goes everywhere in the base and provides power everywhere you go. There's transformers, batteries, input hatches, you name it. Powers just about everything. I've got one central cable that I spent way too much time of my life making this cable. Ender Fluid Conduit is the block name, and it is a pain to make. It definitely made life convenient, but I made way too much of it. Hundreds and hundreds of blocks, all spanning the entire base. Very convenient, but dear goodness gracious, what a mistake that was, in many ways. I wish I had done other things in life, I suppose, but you know, I spent 800 hours on this world, so, you know, that's kind of the name of the game. Just a lot of random cables. This is a big fat computer cable. This is all fluid cables right here. Not a lot of exciting stuff on the under here. But I can kind of move on through the rest of the base. There's not much left to show. Everything shown off thus far has effectively been made from me. The rest is made by the housewife, and I think he made a really good design. There's one more build I can show. Actually, a few. I guess I'll start with his, just because I was talking about it. I think he did a pretty good build. Very different style from what my line of knowledge is, and I guess I should preface that everything going into here is all his work. He did a bunch of magic mods, specifically Witchery, which has some goofy stuff in it, as you can see. It's a lot of plants and a lot of rituals. It's very cool. You bind familiars and do a lot of like fairy tale magic incanting and things like that. He's got a very good aesthetic going on here. I think it fits the vibe pretty dang well. If I go up here, he's got a nice little like witch hut going on here, and there's some ritual tables as well as just like little blood sacrifice altars, stuff like this. The The mod requires magical plants to be nearby to work effectively. So while this is a very aesthetic looking build, it's also a very functional build as well, which big ups to them. They've got just a big roof here because, again, they were a vampire for a while, so they were burning in the sun. Over here is just a lot more ritual altar stuff going on. I really like the aesthetic of this build. I'm a big fan of the really light design they went. Roof is obviously unfinished, but that's how it goes, you know. Can't finish every project. I like the floor in here a lot. If I had to critique one thing, I wish it kind of had some depth to it, to the floor. That's just my favorite thing in Minecraft. I wish it was kind of three-dimensional, like half sunk blocks right there, but I think it's pretty good as is. Ceiling's a little repetitive here, but again, that's just nitpicking at this point. I think it looks good. This is like an elevator block right here, as well as a staircase, just for convenience. And down below is some pretty dang cool builds that he's got going on here. Very different aesthetic again. And here he's got some like funny little jail slave pens for villagers, as well as copies of all of our characters. Like this is a little miniature version of my character. Let me take off all my armor and whatnot so you can see it. And that's just from some goofy little mod. It's just a fun little thing. Not really serving any purpose, but it's just cute. If I can actually remember how to put armor back on. Okay, did I think I dropped all that armor? Oh, there we go. But he's got some nice functionality down here. He's got like little kobolds, or I think these are hobgoblins, and they just spend all of eternity mining infinite cobblestone here. And you can see I just have a giant ball following me now. And that kobolds, or those hobgoblins, I know I'm getting confused. It's because when they mine cobblestone, they produce a resource called koboldite, despite them being called goblins. Not sure why, but it's a useful resource, so it's pretty cool, pretty intuitive. I don't think he used any sort of guide or build for this. It was just all from the dome piece. It's pretty cool. A little bit more down here. Very good looking build, by the way. I like this, like going on here a lot. He's got all his magic mobs in here. He's got like owls and frogs, which again, those are just for like familiars. Pretty cute. Solid aesthetic in here. I like the pens. I like the animals. Pretty cute. A little repetitive with the floor, but again, I just nitpick everything when it comes to building. Um, Especially my builds. I haven't been doing that a lot, but I can assure you I am not the biggest fan of what I've made on this server a lot of time. All the unfinished stuff, and especially this room here, right here. This is another unfinished room. This is sort of the portal hub center. We've got another portal, Twilight Forest portal. These portals take you to like crazy false dimensions that I've made. These are like not pre-generated, but completely freehand made worlds that we used as a hub to get to various different planets. So we can get to the moon, or we can get to Mars if we take this one over here. There's not really anything going on in there, but I'll just show it off because it's pretty cute. And yeah, didn't really set up any sort of hub, but you know, it is what it is. And that'll take us right back through. I'll just go back into the actual world. Again, server's a little bit laggy. It's existed for about a year without ever being restarted, so it's definitely running into some hiccups at this point. We've got some fancy enchanting tables going on here. There's like a complicated series of enchantment tables and over enchantment tables and disenchantment tables that we have in this world that let you infinitely upgrade enchantments, which is a pretty cute cheese. As for this room itself, I really wish I could say I like it. I like the floor, I like the nature. I kind of hate the great wood stairs I've got going on here. I really was ambitious with the ceiling. Very comically expensive blocks that I used. The design's all right, but I originally intended to put like plant magic mods on top of this, on top of the ceiling here, and have some sort of like house above this, but that never happened, and I never knew how to like finish the design here, so it just never happened. Instead, we ended up with magic mods. This just used to be a crop farm. This is just a little pen here from the very start of the server that never got like moved or anything. Um, I think that oh man, I think the magic mod, plant magic mods can be accessed here. There we go. This used to be the blood magic that I showed off earlier, but that got moved. And now we just have a giant plant magic mod area, which looks very beautiful. This is a very dope looking room. I didn't make this at all. This was all my the housewife and his girlfriend's work. They put this room together. Um, and it got reworked a little bit. They originally tried to expand this way, but it kind of ran into the other magic room, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so it started getting really close on space here. So they kind of had to change plans and basically just do it in the opposite direction. Not a lot happened with the magic mod, or the Botania is what it's called, the plant magic mod. Um, it got kind of unfinished, but its purposes were nice. It let us enchant things infinitely, and it looks pretty cute. I think that's basically it. I basically just rambled this entire time, so apologies. This probably wasn't the most exciting of world showcases, but you know, it's this is all it's gonna exist as now. It's just a bunch of rambling. Um, and a lot of unfinished bases. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else that I can show off. I guess a few more unfinished things. The spaceships in this game create a lot of pollution, so I realized we would need to put it pretty far away from the base. And so when everyone was gone for a while, I decided to work on this as just like a hobby. When the dark era where I thought they would come back, they didn't. And I just tried to make like a rocket silo. I like the design of a lot of this. Obviously, again, another unfinished project. Name a more iconic duo than myself in those. Uh, a lot of it looks nice. I like the lower layers here. I meant to just expand it one more layer. And it does work, and I think it fits pretty well for what it has. I intended to put like a sort of mission control, like mini hub area here where you could be viewing it from like a window, and maybe have some sort of like automated button to open a hatch or something elaborate like that, but it just never got finished. Um, and that's fine. There's, I guess, a little bit more. There's like, I think a hallway over here that doesn't really lead to anything. It's just a few farms that connects to the bee farm over here. As well as, I think these are mushroom farms in the walls here that we needed for a little bit. Originally, this area was excavated, I believe, for the cactus farms. At the very start, I thought we were going to power our base off of cactus. I painfully made someone make that and then realized pretty much immediately once it was all up and running that it just wasn't enough to actually power things. It still helped us quite a bit, and I'm happy to have it, but yeah, it was definitely a pretty big L. Got some very nice little animal farms over here. Got the original water towers that supplied the water for the base when we were still using steam. Got a lot of like unfinished, messy world base up here. This is the like hub for Mars and the moon. That's the actual like physical embodiment of that hub zone. A lot of just chaotic mess going on here. And I've got a few crop farms up in the air, but that's kind of it. I can show off our personal dimension, and I think it's kind of cute to show this off and have it be the last thing that gets shown because honestly, it's like the last good project they got done. And this is just the large crop farm that the housewife made. It was a pretty extensive project. They had to make this cute little computer here, which would automatically breed crops together to be new species as well as new growth tiers of like quality. Each crop has stats on it, growth, gain, and resistance, and that robot basically just automates that whole process. Normally, it would take months and months for someone to do it by hand, but instead, it's convenient and really easy to do. The farm here, I think, looks pretty immaculate. It all is powered by I think a magic solar panel effectively, just this funny little egg here, and it's all shipped back to the home world, where in theory, once upon a time, it would have been processed, but instead, that never really happened. We never finished the pack, and we never will, at least not in this world. For progress, we got, oh, it looks like we actually, huh, I guess we technically are in LUV tier. So that's cute. I wouldn't really say that's genuinely a completion of my goal. The last thing that actually stopped the progress was something called the assembly line, which would have just taken a comical amount of work to do. But still a lot of things done. I mean, all these quest chains, at least we have access to them, but in reality, we got to LUV tier 6, which is probably about a fifth of the way to the end goal. So, in the grand scheme of things, we didn't really finish anything, but I don't regret it. It was fun, regardless.